Good morning and welcome to today's episode of Transform. Today I want to talk to you a little bit out of Isaiah 61 about beauty from ashes. The scripture says this: "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord anointed me to bring good news to the humble, to proclaim release for the captives, to freedom to the prisoners, to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant those who mourn in Zion, giving them garland instead of ashes," or another version says beauty from ashes. When I think about that scripture, I'm reminded of a story of the great King David's son, Amnon, who raped his sister Tamar. And when he raped her, he left her in a state of ashes. Hear what the scripture says. It says, "Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the ornate robe that she was wearing." Here was the daughter of the king, left in a state of ashes on her head and a torn robe, which would have been a royal robe. And how did that happen? Well, first of all, it was because someone more powerful than her took what never should have been taken. And some of you watching this today, there's been people in your life that were more powerful than you that took what should never have been taken. You see, ashes in the Bible, it represents grief, death, and mourning. Ashes in the Bible represents humiliation, worthlessness, and insignificance. And that's how she felt, and that's what she was at in her life. And there's many people who are listening to this that you've been humiliated, you felt worthless and insignificant. Things have happened, people have done stuff, you've done stuff, and you feel like you're in ashes. Here's what the scripture says: that then Amnon hated her with intense hatred. In fact, he hated her more than he had loved her, and he said to her, "Get up and get out." Isn't that interesting? He hated her, but why? I think he hated her because she was a reminder of what he did and who he was. They hate you because you're a reminder of what they did and who they are. Sometimes you think, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. It was what is wrong with them. And you now are a reminder to them of what they've done and who they are, and they hate you because of it. Because of what they did to you, they want to drive you out of their life. They hate you because you're that reminder. But see, here's the great part about this whole story and what the Bible tells us about beauty from ashes, is that there's a time in our life where God, because of his redeeming work, can bring beauty out of places of ashes. And you see, it's not my work to get, rather it's my work to receive. And how does that happen? But that's where the rubber meets the road. How does it happen? Well, let me give you a starting place. There's the starting place. First of all, you must believe God is not the author of your ashes. Many people believe that God is the author of the ashes of their life. Let me ask you a question. If God is the author of your ashes, why would you trust him to be the bestower of your beauty? You see, we have this notion sometimes that everything that happens is God's blueprint. That's just not true. There are times in your life that the ashes of your life is because Satan was the author of those ashes. The attacks, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And sometimes the result are ashes. Sometimes it's someone else who's the author of your ashes. They did something to you. They hurt you, rejected you, abused you, whatever it might have been. Sometimes it's yourself. Let's be honest. Sometimes we do things, we make mistakes, and we make decisions that bring ashes into our life. At other times, there's just life happens. Life situations are the author of our ashes. Sometimes it's death. Sometimes it's sickness, things that just happen. But God is not the author of those ashes. But let me say this to you. Even though he's not the author, he is Lord over the ashes. And let me say this. So first, we have to say that God is not the author of my ashes. Secondly, we have to stop assigning a divine purpose to everything that happens. We have to stop assigning a divine purpose to somebody else's sin. Amnon sinned against his sister. God didn't tell him to. God didn't tempt him. And God didn't bring him to a place of sin against his sister for a divine purpose. We must stop assigning a divine purpose to somebody else's sin. You see, but here's what I do know, that I've got to believe that God has a redemptive plan for what wasn't his divine purpose. A redemptive plan is God's ability to redeem what was not his divine purpose. A redemptive plan is God's ability to bring something good out of something bad that he never intended. There was no divine purpose for you being abused, but God has a redemptive plan. There was no divine purpose for your rejection, but God has a redemptive plan. There was no divine purpose for your child's death, but there is a redemptive plan. There was no divine purpose for your child's addiction, but there is a redemptive plan. There was no divine purpose for your husband or wife having an affair, but there is a redemptive plan. We've got to understand that God is the one who brings beauty out of ashes, but he did not plan those ashes. He is not the author of your ashes, but he is the author of your beauty because he has a redemptive plan for your ashes. I want to encourage you. If you got some ashes in your life, allow God to do what only he can do. Allow him to be the one who can bring something beautiful out of something ugly. Allow him to be the one who can redeem something that was never his plan. If you do that, he will transform your life. Have a great week.